What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News, a comic book podcast that also talks about movies, TV shows, and typically we feature a beer of the week. Unfortunately, no beer this week because it's 7 a.m. where I'm at. And I know some people call me a quitter, but delicious coffee in my cup this morning. Can't go wrong with a good Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee. And as always, though, if you're looking for our episodes, Hops Geek News on any podcasting platform, any social media platform, that's where we are. The 90 million social media platforms there are. Yes, we are on just about every single one of them. Do us a favor, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you feel so inclined to support the show, patreon.com/hopsgeeknews. We release exclusive episodes, exclusive content. Come hang out with us. And we send you a nice little care package too, because that's, our favorite thing. We send you our comic book recommendations. We have a really great show today. Christian Ward is joining us to talk Batman City of Madness, his upcoming comic book from DC Comics. You might have known him from a little known comic book most recently. Hopefully you picked it up from Image Comics, Bloodstained Teeth. And if you haven't, man, we'll talk a little about that possibly, and you should definitely dive into that comic as well. But Lauren, what kind of coffee graces your cup this morning?
So I still have the coffee and capes, which I highly recommend. You can find them on Instagram. They're a little comic book fan podcast as well, and they get some great coffee. But my husband made Starbucks already, so when I come out and the coffee's already brewing and it smells great, I got to go with Starbucks. But I didn't have a Batman mug, but I do have my Supernatural mug, and not only does Dean say I'm Batman in the show, he also voices Batman in The Long Halloween. So I felt like it was connected. I have way too
I'm
many Marvel mugs. I need a
petitioning.
DC mug.
You should. I'm petitioning for Jensen to play Batman in DCU
He'd
personally.
be a fantastic Bruce Wayne and a fantastic
Second of
Batman.
all, like,
He should be cast.
you should be cast as some serial killer in Gotham City for drinking hot coffee in Florida. Like, disgusting. Ugh.
Well, I'm in the air conditioning. I'm not
I don't
outside.
care. It sounds terrible. Man, it's iced coffee all day for me. You know how it goes. But you don't care about our coffees because we have a great guest here joining us. Christian, welcome to the show. Thank you for agreeing to come hang out with us and talk some Batman.
Hello, thank you for having me. I too am also drinking coffee. So I'm part of the gang. I think you need to rebrand your whole podcast and it's got to be a coffee bean thing now. It's got to
There
be.
you go. It's
I'm
going to
down with
be
Yeah,
it.
Coffee Beans Geek News rather than Hops Geek News.
let's change it over. I want the first episode that I'm in
I
We've
like
beans
changed
it.
it. We are
all the
now the
way.
coffee and geeks. There we go.
Mm,
We just do coffee beers. I'd be fine with that too.
That's true too. Yeah. It but no, welcome.
thank you,
Man,
thank
you
you.
killer artist. If you guys have not checked out Christian's like art alone, absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best artistry out there in comic books today.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
Head to his website, which I will be in the link in the bio. But one thing that we always like to do is get kind of your origin story. How did you get into the world of comics, and what is your geek origin story?
Oh, I was bitten by a radioactive comic book creator, and then,
Lucky.
just mangled my arm. No, yeah, like many of us, I always wanted to be a comic book creator. Since a very early age, wanted to kind of draw comics, wanted to write comics, and actually did. In my primary school when I was a little nipper, I would draw these comics that would star all of my friends as the heroes and all the people I didn't like as the villains, and the teachers were the villains. I would photocopy it at my mom's work, and then I would sell like photocopied copies on the playground. Like, do you know
Oh,
what I mean?
Good
wow.
business model from a young age. All
Do
right.
you know what I mean? Like, I was saying this on Twitter earlier today. Like, I think, you can be the best comic book creator in the world. If you don't know how to sell your books or sell you're losing half the battle. So like, I've always come from the point of view of just like, yeah, you've got to be as good at selling the idea as you are making the idea. So that started early. So yeah, but like, I had a love of comics. My dad used to work shifts, so we didn't always see him because he would be working for the night, sleeping for the day. And one thing he would always do to kind of, say I love you and keep connected was he would, on his way home when he'd buy his papers, he would buy a comic book and like leave it on my bedside table. So he'd be in bed, he'd gone to bed. I wouldn't see him for a day or two. But like, I knew he was thinking of me because there'd always be like a Batman comic on the bedside table. And
That's
it was
awesome.
just,
That's
it was
adorable.
just that it just kind of fostered that kind of like, there was a real emotional connection of like, kind of like, because it was a thing both from love, but also just, it was always like really random. Like, so one week I'd get a Batman comic, and then the next week it might be like a Marvel thing. I'd get a Hulk thing, and then it'd be something else. And like the way it would work in the kind of like the 80s in the UK is news agents would get kind of American comics, but they wouldn't necessarily get them at the same time. They wouldn't necessarily get them. It was like a random assignment would be sent every week, so it was just random. So you couldn't necessarily follow the story. But I always loved that idea of picking up a story and I was halfway in it. It'd be like part two, part three, even the
Mm.
finale, and like I'd have no idea what was going on, but in a way that was the excitement of it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, what's happening? And just trying to catch up. So really, that was the seed that kind of that kind of grew the oak tree of wanting to be a comic book artist and just always really just loving comics. And then when I was 13, I was gifted for Christmas Arkham Asylum, Serious House on a Serious Earth. Real ones always give it the full title. And man, it just blew my mind, that there was this comic that it wasn't just a comic, it was, hang on, comics are art.
Oh yeah.
And I'd always been an artist and wanting to draw and paint and stuff. And it just basically unlocked something in me. And it just that was it then. It was just like snowballing and just wanting to do this job. But it took a long time. I mean, anyone listening out there that wants to be a comic book artist or comic book writer or really anything in the creative industries, I think one of the biggest things that you kind of have to foster is just patience. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
47 this year, and really, it's really only been the last couple of years that I've really felt okay. I've got a decent footing now. I've kind of like I feel a little bit more stable. And for many years, it was doing comics while, at night and then going to do a day job. So it was a very long process. But I used to be a school teacher, and I always talk about this on like interviews and stuff. That the thing that kind of took me over from being a school teacher to going back to comics was I used to use comics as a teaching tool. So
Mhm.
I'd do kind of like comics and there'd be like a worksheet. So the kids would think, oh, this is comics, this is cool, this is fun. But I'd hide learning in it. Like, how do you do body proportion? How do you do perspective? How do you do composition? Because all those things you need in comics.
Mhm.
And I had a snotty little kid one day who basically said to me, if I like comics so much, why don't I do them? And it was just like, oh, why don't I? And that was when it
Listen here, you
really
little
kind of like,
shit.
yeah. A little shit made my life. And it was I kind of and this was back in the kind of early 2000s. Um I just that's when I kind of went right back into it and started doing comics again for the first time in a long time. And started posting things on I mean forums were the big thing back then rather than social media. So I was posting things on like Jinx World, which was Brian Bendis' forum, and various others. And it just got seen by a few people. And the first comic I did was a 5-page short story for Atomic Robo, which is an independent
Ooh, yeah.
comic, which incredibly is still going today. Really good independent comic. And man, those 5 pages, they took me like 3 months. It was insane. But from that, I then got an image book. From that, I got another image book, and then finally, the third image book, which was Odyssey with Matt Fraction, I was able to go full time. But that whole from the first thing to the last thing was about 5, 6 years of like, duh, 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 of still not really making a lot of money in it, and just kind of still doing a day job and kind of treating comics as a passion project of love rather than something that would, feed me. And then
Right.
I was just very lucky. And Matt was a big fan. I was a big fan of Matt's, and we got to do a really cool project together. And then the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah.
I have to say we've heard a lot of origin stories. That is genuinely the sweetest origin story I've heard. And
Agreed.
Oh, thank you.
with the comment though, it's so funny because you never know what's going to resonate with somebody.
No.
Like you just one little comment can totally shift, your life. I've had things like that. Well, why did you end up doing this? Well, this random person said this and it
Mm.
really got me thinking. So that's a really cool a way to get into comics. And yeah, look, like I'm in my 40s or just turned 40. I don't know what I want to do with my life yet. So
Yeah, it takes some time.
yeah,
Like,
there's yeah.
and there's no rush, really. I mean, God, there's so many kind of like great creatives, whether they be writers or, even actors or novelists that don't make it or break it until they're in their late 40s or even 50s sometimes. It's just the idea that you have to do this as a young person. That I think that's setting people up for a failure that's not
Mhm.
realistic. And the other thing that I think is really important is just having a little bit of life experience, both to sort of like engage, particularly now as I'm writing, to put into my stories, but also just to sort of like I'm very fortunate. I work with some really good editors and great publishers and stuff, and we always get on really really well. And I remember I was working with Cam Berger on Invisible Kingdom with G. Willow Wilson, and I loved working with Karen and the whole team. And yeah, and I remember her saying like kind of towards the end of the project, if I ever wanted to do anything with her, just to let her know that I'd just been it'd been great working with me and I was really good to work with. And I think a big part of that is that previous to comics, I've had a whole career, working with people, collaborating with people, having to work with a team, sometimes having to work with people that I don't always agree with. And particularly also as a teacher, having to deal with people and convince people, talk about the pupils here, to do something that they don't want to do, not even on a daily basis, but on an hourly basis, having
Right.
to, how do I convince this person to do this? These are all skills that feed into it. And I think kind of as much as I had a hunger for comics, I mean, I remember sending Vertigo Comics some samples about 15 years ago, but I'm so glad that they didn't go anywhere, that it didn't
Mhm.
lead to anything, because I wouldn't have been ready. Even and then even that's as somebody who's coming up
Right.
to
Right.
in his 30s. I just wasn't ready.
Right.
So I'm
There's
not a big believer in things happening for a reason, but I think things things happen when it's right to happen.
Right.
exactly
What
it.
is it?
There's timing is all
Yeah.
everything.
Timing.
Everybody's like
Yeah,
timing is everything. You're like, whatever.
yeah,
And the whole adage like things happen for a reason, but
It'll happen when it happens.
it does. It's
yeah,
almost like that weird light switch that goes off in your head and you're like, wow, I had
yeah,
to go through, a hero's journey almost of sorts. Like you had to
yeah.
fail and you have to go through these
100%.
journeys to finally get to these points where you're like, dang, I made it. So for you, at what point did it feel like, all right, now I have made it. I'm ready. I've gone through the trials, the tribulations, and here I am. I'm fully ready to take this on full time.
I think the adage of saying I made it is very dangerous.
Oh yeah. You
I,
fall down right
I
away.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think I. It's hard. Like, there's elements of like, okay, I'm here now, but the comic industry, like any creative industry, is so tenuous and so intangible that any footing I feel under my foot now could be gone in 6 months. It could
Mhm.
be. So it's. I think it's really important to keep your feet on the ground where it is solid, and just be like, okay, this is me now. How do I stay in this position now? How do I get to this position that I can see above me? What do I need to do to kind of like, because I think you have to keep trying to push your art upwards,
Mhm.
push
Mhm.
your creativity upwards. And even if those steps are only like tiny increments, if you're not moving in that direction, trying to move in that direction, then you risk sinking lower and everything falling. That's not to say that striving makes you immune to the dangers of this industry. It doesn't, but it's going to help. So I don't know if I've ever really made it. I mean, this Batman book that we're here to talk about. I mean, that's a dream.
Yeah,
You know, that's
that makes it
literally a
true. Yeah.
lifelong, it's a lifelong dream. And, you know, I treat this job as a job and I'm very kind of professional about it. And I try not to fanboy. I treat my peers as peers rather than going, oh my God, I'm a big fan of you, even though I am a huge
Hmm.
fan of some of my peers. But all of that has gone out the window for me for this because I might never get to do this again. So for me, doing this Batman book is literally a dream come true. I mean, I am high-fiving, 14-year-old me. Um,
Yeah. Time to go for it. Hell
because because it's amazing to
Yeah.
sort of
yeah.
think, I don't know what's going to come next year or the year after, but I know I've got this now, so I'm enjoying this now, and I'm working hard to sort of like sell it. I'm working hard to promote it. I'm not sitting on my laurels, and I'm also working really hard to make it absolutely the best thing I've ever done, which I really believe it is. Um, and then that's all you can do, really. Just keep striving to be better and striving to kind of give your fans and your readers something that's going to excite them and hopefully surprise them every time. And sometimes that takes, you take chances, you take risks, and they don't always pay off. But I think as long as you're trying, then you're going in the right direction.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
before we get into the comic, I want to talk a little bit about your art because obviously your art just pops. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of those like when you're at, a con and you walk by that piece of art and you're like, I need that on my wall. I felt like
Mm.
every picture I looked of yours, that was it. I got like watercolor feels. It was not your normal comic book art. It was
Mhm.
gorgeous. So we usually
Thank you.
always ask, what are your comic book artists that inspired you? But did you have artists that inspired you that were not comic book artists?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and again, this kind of goes back to me not being ready before because my comic art. If I could show you comic book art I did as a teenager and as a young adult, and it basically looks like a kind of weird amalgamation of kind of Jim Lee and like Chris Bakula. Bakula, is that how I pronounce his name? Chris,
I think so. Yeah.
Generation X guy.
Mm.
Um, and it's all pen and ink, lots of cross hatching, lots of shadows. I mean, it's ink. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? And I'm so far away from that now. But the reason being is because I studied illustration at university. I actually for a long time was trying to make it as a children's picture book illustrator. Um, and so my
Oh.
work is far more evocative of contemporary illustration than it is of comic book illustration. And I think and then I was a fine artist for a while. When I was living in London, I used to do kind of exhibitions of like massive canvases, lots of abstract painting and just like weird kind of, weird kind of like shapes. There's an artist who I really love who unfortunately passed away, a London artist who died at a far too younger age when he was in his
Mm.
30s, called
Oof.
Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal? That's what's his
No,
name. I'm mixing
he's
his
I
name
didn't.
up.
obviously in The Last of Us. What do you mean? He's still kicking. Go
No,
ahead.
no,
Yeah.
no. What's his name? Pedro. I'm gonna have to. I will look it up. 'Cause I'm gonna look it up on the phone now. And he did. There's an English band called Gomez years ago now, and I used to be really into kind of my music as a kid. And he did all the covers for all these albums, and I loved it. Like I loved when I saw these paintings, I just couldn't get over how amazing they were. Um, and it kind of just changed how I worked. Let's see if I can find it. Reggie Pedro. So I was close. Reggie Pedro,
We
that's
all
his
have
name.
Pedro Pascal at the tip of our tongue.
Yeah,
I mean,
At
we
all
can't
yeah,
we
times.
can't
exactly.
stop. He's everywhere right now. Yeah.
He's and rightly so. So Reggie
Yeah.
Reggie Pedro. He's really cool. He does like kind of very kind of urban kind of like paintings, but like the buildings are very abstract, the figures are very abstract, and it's beautiful. And it really kind of triggered something in me. So weirdly, like he's a huge influence on me. And it was from album covers from the UK in the kind of early 2000s. Um, and so like, there's loads of little weird little artists like that have kind of peppered in.
Mhm.
And of course, Dave McKean, and of course, Bill Sinkovich, but also weirdly, like kind of, Frank Whiteley is a big influence on me, even though my work couldn't look any more different from his because his storytelling and pacing and the way he, uses drama in his work was a real inspiration to me. So yeah, there's lots of interesting things peppered in there from, even impressionism,
Mhm.
expressionism, you know, drawing Batman at the moment. My Two Face is pretty much inspired by Basquiat with the kind of shapes
Oh
that I'm
yeah.
using to sort of do his kind of like the bad side. So, and I think that's what keeps things kind of exciting and interesting to sort of bring in these unusual influences and inspirations into comics. Just keeps things fresh.
Mhm. Well, and I think with a character such as Batman, who's so well known and so popular, you need that little extra, like what makes this comic stand out.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's go into Batman City of Madness. So, I
Yes.
mean, everybody loves Batman. Everybody loves a good Batman story. So tell us a little bit about this one in particular that you
So,
can tell us.
I can. So basically, yeah. I mean, so really, I mean, do you want me to talk a bit about how it became, or do you want the pitch
Absolutely.
of this?
Yes.
Yeah, let's see how
Give
this
us the
baby's coming
origin
to
of
life.
this
Absolutely.
Batman
Because you're
story.
bringing back, one of the most prominent, popular, villains of Gotham. You're bringing back the Court of Owls, which is one of the
Oh
most
yeah, yeah.
popular groups, since, Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo
Hmm.
brought them up in 2012, God, 10 years ago now. And you're bringing them back,
Um,
baby. So I know this alone has fans just over the moon.
listen, I mean, like, this is my love letter to Gotham and to Batman, and this is very much a kind of love letter primarily to Arkham Asylum, Serious House on the Serious Earth. Always give it a full title, and it kind of acts as a pseudo sequel to that book. And when people read it, I don't want to give too much away how it connects to that book, but it's cool. It's really
Mhm.
cool. But it's also a love letter to Batman as a whole. There's a little bit of Bruce Timm's Batman in there. There's references to characters from that TV show. There's a lot of kind of Tim Burton's Batman in there because obviously, I was 12 when Batman 89 came
That's
out, and
the
it,
best
you know,
Batman.
and it just like, as much as I love, more contemporary Batmans, that's a magic film to me.
Mhm.
But also, I stopped reading Batman. Um, until the new 52. And
Same.
like a lot of comic book fans, I picked up like a lot of the first issues and didn't necessarily pick up a lot of the second issues, but the one that stuck and the one that, I pretty much read their entire run, which is really rare for me, primarily because I don't really have the time to read a lot of comics, was Scott and Greg's Batman run. And that first arc of Court of Owls was just it was incredible. And so this book, as much as it's a love letter to Arkham Asylum first, it's also a love letter to their, Court of Owls storyline. And the owls, I knew the owls should feature in this because I'd never really seen them in a kind of cosmic horror before, but it kind of felt to me that they were the perfect natural fit for cosmic
Mhm.
horror. I mean, I'll give you the kind of the elevator pitch of the story, and then I'll tell you a little bit, your listeners, how it came to be. But the idea is buried beneath Gotham is another Gotham, the Gotham below, a city of madness. And this place is a twisted, reflected reality created by an ancient cosmic alien entity that feeds on trauma itself. And for centuries, the gateway to this place has been guarded by the Court of Owls. But now there is a Batman below who has ascended and escaped this realm, coming to Gotham to look for his very own Robin. So Batman has to form an uneasy alliance with the court to stop this Batman below. And it's all going to kick off, and it's all going to go wild and crazy. And so the book kind of happened because I drew this character, Batman Below, who's kind of, for anyone who's not seen it, he's kind of like a Cthulhu-like creature with the bat cowl, the cape, and kind of like claws, but he had this kind of maul of like dribbling tentacles coming out of his face, out of the cowl.
Mm.
And I always had this story in mind for years, and then about 2 years ago, I did just a piece of fan art and posted it for Halloween. I thought it would be a cool thing to post. I posted this image, and at the time, it like was the most popular thing I'd ever posted. I mean, it just blew up beyond any expectations, and I had people reach out to me. It amassed me a load of new followers and was retweeted like thousands and thousands of times, like thousands and thousands of times. I've never seen a reaction like it, and it was all based on like this book that didn't exist. I put the title on the image, and it kind of planted the seed both in me, but unbeknownst to me, it also planted the seed in with DC. Somebody at DC kind of spotted it, and cut to a year or so later, I was working with the Black Label editors, Chris Conroy and Matthew Levine, on Aquaman Andromeda, written by Ram V. And we were all having a great time, and it was really, we were all working really well together. And we came to the end of the book, and Chris Conroy, who's the group editor of Black Label, sort of said to me, "Okay, what's next?" Which was amazing. I mean, that's the best thing you can hear from it because it kind of says you're good to work with. He said, "What's next? What's this Batman idea? And do you actually have a pitch?" And I had, it was there. So I typed it up, and within an hour or two, he had it. Um, and he submitted it to the people that be, and within a week or so, we had a green light, and it was happening. And then from that point, I think in December, I started writing it, and then I've been working on it ever since. And like as I said to you guys off air, like I spent the last 9 months like just desperate to be able to sort of tell people this was happening. Um, and every now and again, someone would retweet the original image, like it did that thing that kind of some viral tweets that kind of pop up every now and again. And every time it would pop up, I'd be like, "Oh, you don't know,
If
you don't
only you
know."
knew.
Yeah. But I think that's why I haven't stopped talking about it since it got announced, and I haven't stopped feeling excited about it since it got announced. I love my job. I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I do for a living, and to be able to be at home with my kids and my family, and be doing like a really fun job. And like to be, it's a privilege to be able to entertain people and give people pleasure. That's a huge privilege, and I love that. But working on this, I've never felt such satisfaction and excitement and love for what I do, and it's amazing. And I'm really like I'm going to make the absolute most of this. I'm going to talk to anyone who will listen. I'm going to shout from the roof that I'm doing this,
As you
and I'm going to
should.
shout from the roof that this is the best thing I've ever done. And I have put this is absolutely my dream project. Somebody said to me the other day, "What's next?" Just because that's what you say. And like inside, I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done? Like I've peaked too soon."
What's next? What do you mean? What's
Yeah,
next? This was
yeah.
it. I
I
don't
was
know what
like,
you're talking
"Oh my
about.
God, I can't afford to retire after this. I need to think of something." No, I mean it's been an incredible way that this book has kind of sprung into life. I mean, I said to you off air, like I don't really believe in magical thinking. As much as Grant Morrison, who wrote the original book, they're very much into that idea of magical thinking. For me, I'm far more has always the idea of magical thinking has always taken away the idea of how hard work has got me here and how just persistence has got me here. But I think this has just been very lucky, and just it struck a nerve with people, and I think that's how it's happened. It's basically, I think people have wanted a cosmic horror like this, and people have wanted a court of owls, something new with them, and those two things put together. And I think I've just been really lucky that this idea is, I'm the first one that's got it, but it would have happened eventually. I've just got there first. So I'm excited.
I was gonna say that, since this guy announced, most people I've seen in the past are like, "Oh, another Batman story. We need another Batman story." But that hasn't been the case with this one. I've seen nothing
no,
but pure excitement, and I think a lot of it is your unique take of we're doing like this weird horror kind of spin, which hasn't been seen before in a Batman comic. It's a fresh idea. It's a very,
Mm.
very good idea. And you have every right to be excited. Like you said, most
Mm.
people dream of one day getting to write their Batman story or be their Batman. And for you, this isn't just like a quick comic book. No, this is like a 3-part, 48-page issue like comic where
Yeah.
you just get to pen this love letter, and then also you said it yourself, it's your dream job, and it's a very unique take, and it has people excited. I've been seeing it everywhere on Twitter. Not a day goes by where you don't see just a load of tweets that are just like over the moon excitement, and that's
Mm.
you. I think you really do have something special coming with this.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I mean, I think so. It feels special, and like my editors have been really supportive. And what's great is, because I've been working on this for so long, there's a real grind with comics. You tend to work on something and it's out literally 3 months after you start, and then the
Mhm.
ball starts. It's like Indiana Jones and the big ball chasing you. Those are your deadlines, and like they get closer and closer. And you start off with issue 1, and you've got 6 weeks to do it, and then issue 2, you've got 5 weeks, and then you've got 4 weeks, and then that ball gets closer and closer and closer. And obviously, you have to start cutting corners, and you just get it in. But this, because we've been working on it so far in advance, and we all decided that October, the Halloween
Perfect
season,
time.
Yeah.
was the right time to release this. I've been able to, but I spent a long time. I got it. It was all written before it was drawn, so I really spent a long time. I wrote issue 1, then I wrote issue 2, then issue 3, and just really making sure it was done. Doing multiple drafts of each issue just to really go, okay, fine tune, fine tune, fine tune, and just get it as good as possible. And likewise with the art. Normally I would average about 5 pages a week. That's like my kind of average. But with this, I've just gone down to kind of 3.5, 4 pages a week, which is quite slow for me. But it's meant that I can put like that extra level of
Mhm.
craft and just,
Hmm.
you know, I was describing it to somebody the other day that for people that might know and might be fans of my cover work, this book is very much just like, what if my interior work looked like my cover work? And that's kind of what it is. It's really like lots of high level paintings. And I mean, I shared it with lots of, pair friends while I was working on it. And people would think I was sending them a cover. And I was like, oh no, that's a page. Um, yeah, I'm really
That's a big
thrilled.
compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I don't think now's really time for false modesty, really. But like, I genuinely think this is the best thing I've written, and I genuinely think this is the best art I've ever done. So I'm really excited.
I
So
mean,
one of
oh, go ahead. I was just going to say that just the cover alone that, I know we talked about before the show, there was two different covers. There's the cover that
There is, yeah,
you wanted to go, which has like his face and things, and then there's the other cover. But I mean, both are beautiful. And just looking at the covers, the way you intertwine like the blacks with the purples, and has this like deep yet vibrant feel to it. Yeah, you can
mm,
tell just right off the bat that there is every page is going to be an adventure. And then I really
yeah,
hope people take the time to just slowly, because more often than not, people just like blow through, read, read, read. No, take the time, like feel the art.
yeah.
That's something I really love to do, and that's already something that I know I'm going to be doing with this comic book. I'm going to be revisiting it over and over just to find something new every time.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at that right now. I love the parallels between the underground Batman and I guess Gotham's Batman.
Yes.
So one of the questions we always ask comic book creators is how was it like
Mm.
working with the writer or working with the artist? Was there a lot of back and forth? So obviously that's
Oh,
not a
he's
question.
he's an arsehole. Some of the things he's got me drawing. Oh.
So when you were writing it though, did you already see it in your head? Because you just, explained that you wrote it and then you would draw it. So did you already have that picture in your head as you were writing?
I mean, like, sure, it's funny, like, I didn't really write this. I mean, obviously, I knew I was going to do the art, but what was important to me as I wrote it was important it had to be the right story, and the story came first. And as an artist, I would catch up with that story afterwards. I didn't want to kind of like go, okay, this is going to be this, this is going to be that, and I'm not very good. I mean, like I kind of joked before, but there are bits in it where I struggled as an artist to kind of like convey what I wanted to show. I mean, case in point, I'm not really an architecture guy, but this book, I need it. You know, I need to have a sense of place. I need to have a sense of city, and so that was challenging for me. Um, and it was important that the script and the story was pure, and I followed it through organically and logically to where it needed to be. Like if there needed to be a scene set here, that's where I set it. If there needed to be a moment of this, that's what it had. Rather than thinking, well, I wouldn't be very good at drawing now, and that's not what I would really love to draw is this. You know, it was story first, always story first. But obviously, as you know, I know, like kind of as I'm writing it, I know it's going to kind of look a little like this. It's going to be a little bit like this. It's going to be a little bit dreamy. It's going to be a little bit nightmarish. So it, it kind of, I knew it was going to fit my art style, like from the get go. Because when I'm writing, I don't always write for me as an artist. Like my previous book, Bloodstained Teeth, I knew I wasn't the right artist for that because I had to have a far more plausible sense of reality, of our reality, than my work would be able to infuse it with. Which is why I worked with the incredible Patrick Reynolds on that, because that's exactly what he does. So really, it's from the get-go, a project kind of denotes who the artist is. And with this, because of the cosmic horror, because of the kind of otherworldliness, that was that. But then that was the only kind of thing. I didn't have to sort of like think on a kind of like deeper level, panel to panel to panel. It was just the story at that point. And then my artist's brain shifted over going, okay, how do I draw this? How do I convey this? How do I kind of direct it and sell the scene and sell the drama and sell the
Right.
spectacle?
So is that hard to kind of pull back with, okay, I don't want to sacrifice story for beauty. So I know you just
Exactly.
mentioned, so yeah, but yeah, I can't wait to read it because
No,
it's,
I
I mean, I
am.
looked at the artwork before we recorded and then I just pulled it up again and I'm just like, oh my goodness. The Court of Owls, dude, just looks so freaky. It's so simple,
They
but
are
freaky.
they are really terrifying. I mean, the Court of Owls are scary.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
That,
and I think kind of like for me, I'm like kind of like, a Brit who grew up in like the late 70s, early 80s in the UK, and the big thing for us was Doctor Who.
Oh,
oh, I
I
And
love
Doctor
love
that
Who was,
show
Doc.
so much.
Yeah. Got my
Doctor,
TARDIS over here.
and obviously back then, Doctor Who was scary because of the simplicity. I mean, the old kind of Cybermen were just like blank
Oh
slates,
yeah.
and so there's the part of me that's very much into that kind of like simplicity equals fear.
Yeah.
And
Like
yes,
Jaws.
that exactly. So yeah, it's really easy to have a guy in a suit with a blank face be scary. Really easy.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
And the monsters in the shadows that you don't always see tend to be, the scariest.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
now I know that you had mentioned also like people have asked you what's next, but there's been a push for Green Lantern I have seen too. Is that something you're kind of hoping for down the pipe?
I'm planting seeds just in case, so that in 2 years' time I could be like, so I posted an image on Twitter and it blah blah blah. No, it's. I mean, yeah, I do. I have a Green Lantern idea for a story, and I know that DC are keen to kind of keep doing stuff with me. There's conversations that we've had, and that's as far as that's gone so far. I mean, obviously they'll be watching to see how well this does. It is a business. It is
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
a symbiotic relationship. If this does really well, this does really well, it kind of opens up the door for me to have a little bit more creative freedom and be like, okay, so there's this, I know they like the idea that
Mhm.
I've got, but like this, it's a very radical idea. It's very kind of, it would be a Green Lantern that we have not seen before. It would be my Green Lantern, and it would be really effing cool, I think, and something that would be really surprising and exciting. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds.
Right
So
on.
talking
Go and buy
about
this. Go and buy this is what I'm saying, so that I can do
right.
that. Just keep that ball
Yes.
rolling.
The final cutoff date to order this at your LCSs, by the way, is September 10th. Make sure you do this, and it will release October 10th, right in time
That's
for
right.
Halloween. And somebody important's birthday is like right after this too. If anybody needs any ideas, me. Just saying, Batman, go pick it up for me for my birthday as my birthday present.
You're gonna get like 17 copies.
No, I don't want the copies. I want you to buy it for yourself. Like I will buy my own
Oh,
copy.
I'm
As
like,
a
are you
birthday
gonna buy
present to
your
me,
own?
I want
Okay,
everybody who listens
that
to
makes more sense.
make sure they're picking up on October 10th this, because my birthday is the 15th. So as an early present, make sure you're picking up Batman. Please get this done, because this story is going to be just phenomenal. You can tell right off the bat that just this is going to be a story that people are going to latch onto for a very long time.
Thank
Now,
Yeah.
Lauren, do you have any final thoughts before we go ahead and wrap this baby up?
My last question was really just, you mentioned creative freedom. Was there any pushback from DC? Like, okay, you're going too far. Oh, that's too much. Or you have to keep consistent with the Bruce Wayne we know. So they let
No,
you do what you wanted to do. That makes me even
it's
happier, because it's like you want
it's
the veer offs from the character
yeah.
we know.
Oh, and it veers. It goes somewhere. Like yeah, I was really, I mean, it's been like, it's been amazing. There's been I've not heard no this entire time. And like I thought I would, because I go to some really big
Off
places. I mean,
places.
particularly when we get to issue 3 and some of the mysteries kind of like open up, it's yeah, I go to places, and like it's great. And what was really nice was the excitement. I mean, I remember I had lots of kind of like this Zoom calls with uh Matthew Levine is my main editor, my day-to-day editor, and obviously Chris is the group editor who is also involved. But me and Matthew would have kind of like Zoom calls where I would sort of say, and this is what's going to happen in issue 3, and like I'd be getting giddy, and then we're gonna, and he'd be like, "Oh my god, oh!" It was like, I mean, because because everybody that works in comics loves comics, and
Mhm.
everyone works in Batman comics loves Batman comics, and they love the lore, and they love the kind of like, and they love, the whole 80 years of it, So it's you're working with people on something that you love and they love, and I think when you bring that love in, I'm not trying to, in the same way that when I did Bloodstained Teeth, like I love vampires, so it's you subvert the kind of lore there, but you do it with affection. You don't do it to take the mickey. You don't do it to take the piss. You don't do it because you think what exists is ridiculous. You do it because you think what exists is amazing, and you
Mhm.
spin it. You spin it with love, and so that's what I do. Well, that's what I've done here. I respect Batman. And I respect that I am. I respect that I am standing on the shoulders of giants, and it's those giants that I can now do what I'm doing. I'm not creating any of this. I'm like picking. It's easy. I'm getting to pick from what Morrison's done. I'm getting to pick what Snyder's done. I'm getting to pick from, Bruce Timm and all these other greats, that have done all these amazing books. And it's easy then just to kind of come up with something, because you can cherry pick from the very best of 80 years and create something with your spin, and just make something with love, and then
Yeah.
everyone's happy.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I always wonder sometimes when I'm watching something, I'm like, with the writer's room, just like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go do
Yeah.
that. So that's awesome.
I was thinking
Oh,
back
that's
to that
awesome.
scene in Elf where he's just like this chock full of ideas. I'm just like, yes. But no, Christian, sincerely, we thank you for coming to hang out, sharing this journey with us. Again, everybody, September 10th, make sure that you've got your LCSs on hand. Let them know that you want this book. Please do, so that way we can get other really great stories, possibly that Green Lantern story down the road. And
Fingers crossed.
again, just support your local comic book shop as well,
Mhm.
man. I mean, these comic book creators, they love what they do. And the common misconception is that you make a ton of money. No, they can't do that without you, man. This is a business. It's a comics are art, comics are love. So please support your local comic book shop. Now, Christian, as we wrap up, is there
Mhm.
any conventions that you have coming up soon that people can find you at, or where can people find you in general?
So I can be found on social media, on Twitter I
It's
will refuse
always
to
going to be
refer to
Twitter
it
until I
as
die.
anything else, Mr. Rocket Man. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I am at CJ Ward Art. I'm also at CJ Ward Art on Instagram. Um, I'm on Blue Sky as well, but I forget what I am on that. Convention wise, I am going to be in New York City at NYCC for the launch of Batman. So Batman comes out on the 10th, and I believe NYC starts on the 13th, just like a few days later. So I will be in New York for New York Comic Con signing copies of Batman. And then here in the UK, I'm at Thought Bubble in November, which is one of my favorite shows ever.
Yes, get there. I'm missing NYCC this year, unfortunately, but I'm hoping to make it next year. But hey, keep a lookout at your local Comic Con because you never know who's going to be coming through, especially if you live in the areas that FanX comes through or Galaxy Con comes through, all of those good ones. Keep an eye out. And if you want to check out any of his art, I have all of the links in our bio. Check it out. And as we go ahead and wrap up, thanks again for just hanging out. It's really a special
You're
time. We
welcome.
cannot say thank you enough. And thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Just make sure you subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will see you guys next week with another amazing episode. Cheers.